Breaking news. Ted and Adora, the D&D news hound here, just got out of the shower. News came out. Well, it's actually really good news, folks. Welcome to the party, D&D Beyond. This was just released shortly, maybe a couple of minutes ago, from Wizards of the Coast. And yeah, it's just what you think. Let's go ahead and take a look. By the way, my name is Ted. This is Nerd Immersion. If you like what I do here, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps me out, and I'm trying to hit 100K before Gen Con happens. Dungeons & Dragons level up by acquiring the popular digital toolset. This is everything we could have hoped for. D&D and D&D Beyond have always felt like a part of the same family. That's why we're excited to welcome everyone at D&D Beyond to formally join us at Wizards of the Coast, bringing together two teams dedicated to continuing to make D&D easy to run and accessible to all. It's amazing what D&D Beyond has accomplished since its humble beginnings in 2017, and the D&D team has truly leveled up with this acquisition. With over 10 million users, millions of characters created, and millions of campaigns played, the team of 80 passionate creators across the US and Europe have brought so much joy to D&D players around the world, including helping friends and family come together to play through a global pandemic. You're probably wondering what kind of changes might happen as a result of these two teams coming together, so let's make this clear. We have no plans, this is huge, folks, we have no plans to stop supporting D&D Beyond. The purchases you've made, the characters you've created, and the campaigns you've run aren't going anywhere. This is an exciting time for all of us, and growing our team means great things to come. If there's one thing D&D and D&D Beyond have in common, it's the desire to continue making your experience playing the world's greatest role-playing game even better. We'll have more to share with you later this year, so hone those perception checks and warm up your dice, digital and otherwise. In the meantime, join us in having a hearty welcome to D&D Beyond and to the D&D family. Welcome to the party, pal. That's it, guys. That's everything we've wanted, right? I mean, maybe you don't love D&D Beyond, and I could understand if you have issues with the software, but I feel like they put that one line in there. And it's not obviously stuff, it's stuff that I've echoed constantly and I've seen echoed in a bunch of forums and comments, and my hair is just a disaster. But the purchases you've made, the characters you've created, and the campaigns you've run, what the hell's going on, aren't going anywhere. And that is the thing that everybody was worried about, right? If we saw the funky thing with the NDA survey that Wizards of the Coast did, possibly creating their own digital tabletop, now perhaps that concept can be the next evolution of D&D Beyond. D&D Beyond 2.0, if you will, is now one, we're not going to have to worry about them, this whole will they, won't they support the new book, will they, won't they have other things. It seems like, yes, they will absolutely have all of the new content going forward because they're now owned by Wizards of the Coast, which is the best thing that could happen. Nobody is going to lose out on stuff they already purchased. It also seems like this will make us future-proofed for the 2024 updates, meaning that when the new edition comes out, that'll be covered in D&D Beyond. Also, something that many of you have been asking for and wondering why it wasn't done, the concept of when I buy a physical book, why can't I get either a code for the book digitally or a coupon code to purchase the book digitally for cheaper, or vice versa? Realistically, it'd probably be purchase the physical book, get the digital book cheaper. That might have just been fixed. The problem with that in the past is fandom used to own D&D Beyond, and Wizards of the Coast owns Dungeons & Dragons. This is owned by a separate company. It's a little trickier to have. You'd have to work out like deals to say, okay, we'll release this, but you guys make less money because we have a coupon code in our physical book. Now that they're all come together, that might mean that's a possibility going forward. Also, if you recall, we had heard about the concept. Now, I'm still sticking with my concept of box sets for new campaign settings. I still think that's the way it's going to be. But perhaps this is something to also do with the whole released in a new format we haven't seen before. We were assured in the past that it was not a digital-only format, but maybe we'll see some sort of hybrid digital-physical product going forward. I expect more, they said, hone your perception checks, with more to share later this year. I don't know when this acquisition, it seems like it happened as of today. I don't know what this spells out exactly. It doesn't sound like they're laying off any of the D&D Beyond team, which makes a lot of sense. You're going to need people to support your product going forward now that you own it. But perhaps if they did get good positive feedback or have made a lot of headway on their own virtual tabletop in the forms of maps and things, because right, that's the one thing D&D Beyond doesn't have, is they have a wonderful character creation tool tracking the access. One of the only ways you can get full legitimate digital access to Dungeons and Dragons content. This is also something we could see as a good thing potentially going forward, in that while we don't get PDFs directly from Wizards of the Coast, we now have a primary in-house first-party repository for digital D&D books, which was how D&D Beyond always was, but it was always still third-party. Now, again, it is a first-party owned thing, so that's a good thing. And it might also, I don't know if I'm not going to say that this isn't all, sunshine and rainbows. It also has the potential that if Wizards of the Coast ever did decide to go to a 100% fully digital platform, they could be using D&D Beyond as that platform, as in not releasing physical books, only releasing them digitally. And that does bring up the concept of like microtransactions and subscription fees to get access to different things. I don't think we're going that route. I think Wizards of the Coast, even just the way they worded this article, seems to be, and I'm not, in like, WoTC champion here. I'm not I'm more than cynical enough to understand that things could go in a negative way. But it seems to me that this was handled in a way and done basically what everybody had hoped would happen. Wizards bought D&D Beyond before it could be either shut down or they'd have to basically do something where they recreate everything that was done by D&D Beyond different enough to be first party. And then all of you who bought your books and have invested, coming up on 5 years in D&D Beyond, you invested all that time in it, and then all of a sudden it's just gone because Wizards of the Coast doesn't support it anymore. That's a good thing that it is. So perhaps we'll start seeing things like Unearthed Arcana return to D&D Beyond. We know the folks from D&D Beyond said we're not going to focus on that so we can focus on other bigger things. But maybe now with WoTC money and being a WoTC product, Unearthed Arcana can appear once again in D&D Beyond. And I do think that this is going to be the thing that leads us to maps and things in D&D Beyond, right? That's one of the major things. And I'm not saying there's not other things like Foundry, Roll20, Shard, and all these other ones do that D&D Beyond doesn't. But a lot of them, one of the primary things they have is some sort of virtual play space where you have either a top-down or some sort of isometric 3D map where you can move tokens and characters around that you can use to further facilitate your digital gameplay. And savvy people may have found, like, it looks like there might be some map-related stuff on D&D Beyond that's kind of locked and there's nothing there. Perhaps this will be the genesis that pushes it to actually get the digital maps into D&D Beyond. And I think that is probably going to be one of the next big steps we see from this merger. So anyway, that's enough from me on this. They did it. They did the thing we wanted, and I'm excited for that. But let me know, if you were a fan of D&D Beyond and a user of it prior to this merger, how do you feel right now? Are you more excited, less excited, or it's pretty much the same? If you are not a supporter of D&D Beyond prior to this, does this change your opinion at all? This does basically say that we are making them our primary first-party source. That could potentially lead down the road to them saying, yeah, Roll20, yeah, Foundry, all these other ones, it's been a good run, but we're going to pull licensing from you, or when the license runs out, it runs out. We're focusing full force on D&D Beyond because it's something that we now own and it's ours. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, and I will see you all next time.